Have you ever wondered why sharing your deepest truths too soon can feel like handing someone the map to your soul, only to watch them drift away instead of drawing closer? Most women are told that honesty builds intimacy, but the paradox is sharper. When every layer of your story is revealed without rhythm or timing, mystery dies and desire quietly follows. What you think will anchor him, unfiltered confession, often untethers the very bond you hope to deepen. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious longs for the dance of opposites, for the tension between known and unknown, and in that tension attraction breathes. Picture the first glimmer of connection, a man watching a woman whose presence carries both warmth and quiet edges. Her words hint at depth rather than pour it all out. She speaks enough to awaken curiosity, yet leaves whole continents of her interior untouched. This is not artifice, it is the natural rhythm of the psyche guarding its sacred center. To meet another soul is to step into a forest of symbols, and a wise woman lets the forest keep its shadows until the time is right. He does not need the entire map on the first night, he needs the scent of wild pines, the sense that there is more to discover. In Jungian language, early over-confession is a sudden flood of the personal unconscious. The anima, the inner feminine, yearns for recognition, but when she pours forth without the vessel of trust, she overwhelms the masculine psyche. His own shadow senses danger, too much too soon, and retreats to protect its fragile boundaries. You might see it as withdrawal, but it is simply the instinct of the unconscious when confronted with excess revelation. Mystery, after all, is not manipulation, it is the respectful pacing of intimacy. Imagine this dynamic like a dance of archetypes. The lover archetype thrives on anticipation. The queen archetype commands dignity through selective revelation. When a woman discloses every scar, every secret, before the soil of trust has been tilled, she unconsciously abandons her own throne. The king within a man, sensing no quest, loses the desire to pursue. It is not cruelty, it is ancient instinct. Attraction requires a horizon still hidden by mist. You may feel the urge to confess because the ego seeks certainty. If he knows everything, he cannot misunderstand me. But the psyche speaks in symbols, not contracts. Certainty kills the symbol. The shadow within each of us is both guardian and guide, it whispers, not yet. Let mystery do its quiet work. To honor that whisper is to honor your own individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. Individuation demands patience, the ability to let a relationship unfold like a slow dawn instead of a blinding flash. So when you sit across from him and feel the swell of words rising, pause. Notice the heartbeat of the moment. Ask yourself, is this truth shared from grounded desire, or from fear of being unseen? There is a difference, and the unconscious knows it. True intimacy is not built in a single night of revelations, it is sculpted over time, like marble shaped by countless, deliberate strokes. Mystery is not a game. It is the echo of self-worth. It is the silent confidence that your depths are worth exploring slowly. It is the subtle invitation that keeps him leaning in, compelled by the unseen. And as you honor that rhythm, you also honor your own complexity, the archetypal woman who refuses to be reduced to a list of facts. In the hush that follows restraint, something profound begins to stir. When a woman allows the unsaid to shimmer between her words, she awakens what Jung called the numinous, that strange, charged quality that belongs to the sacred and the mysterious. The numinous is not merely curiosity, it is the sense that another human being contains a cosmos. A man who feels this will not rush to solve her like a riddle, he will linger, compelled by the gravity of what he does not yet know. Silence, then, becomes a form of eloquence, a language of its own that speaks directly to the unconscious. Consider how the masculine psyche responds when faced with a woman who holds her center. He senses the boundary, and with it, respect. His own animus, his inner drive toward the feminine, awakens not in conquest but in reverence. This is the paradox of attraction: the less she grasps, the more he reaches. Too many confessions too soon, and the unconscious registers a different signal, a subtle imbalance, a premature exposure that feels less like intimacy and more like intrusion. What was once a magnetic pull becomes static noise, and he may not even know why. Think of the mythic figures who embody this quiet power. Persephone descending into the underworld did not announce every fear to Hades, she carried the mystery of spring and shadow within her. The Grail Maiden in Arthurian legend does not reveal the secret of the cup to every knight, the quest itself is the point. These stories echo in the modern heart because they mirror a psychological truth: the feminine gains depth when she remains partly veiled, not from deceit but from the sacred right to unfold at her own pace. You may feel the counterforce of modern urgency pressing in. Culture tells you that radical transparency equals authenticity, that speed equals connection. Yet the psyche is ancient, and its rhythms are not governed by the clock. The shadow of haste is emptiness. When you rush to be fully known, you risk becoming a surface to be skimmed rather than a depth to be discovered. Slow revelation, on the other hand, draws him not only to your stories but to your silence, to the living symbol of a woman who is her own sovereign. Notice how this dynamic reflects your inner world as well. To guard your mystery is also to protect the sanctum of your selfhood. In Jungian terms, it is an act of individuation, a refusal to let another person define you before you have defined yourself. Each withheld confession is not a barricade but a boundary, a way of saying, I am more than the sum of my disclosures. I will share, but only when the soil is ready. Such boundaries are magnetic, for they signal self-respect, and the unconscious of the other responds with heightened presence. And there is a psychological elegance in this pacing. When a man must approach gradually, his own projections begin to dissolve. He can no longer idealize or reduce you to an archetype of convenience. Instead, he must meet you as you are, layer by layer, mystery by mystery. This slow meeting nourishes authentic intimacy, the kind that is not built on fantasy but on the steady recognition of two complex souls. So when the urge rises to confess every heartbreak, every fear, pause as if you are listening to a hidden melody. Ask, does this serve the relationship, or does it serve my anxiety? Does it invite communion, or does it beg for validation? The difference is everything. To choose restraint is to choose depth. To keep some pages of your inner book unread is to honor the story itself. There is an ancient rhythm to intimacy that the modern world often forgets. In the quiet between two people lies a fertile tension, a field where desire takes root and grows toward something real. Jung called this the space of the transcendent function, a meeting of opposites where new life is born from the tension of not knowing. When a woman speaks with deliberate grace, offering fragments of her truth like lanterns in a dark wood, she keeps that tension alive. Each fragment lights a small path forward but never reveals the entire map, and that is precisely what deepens the journey. The masculine unconscious responds to this unfolding with an almost instinctual reverence. It senses that to come closer it must bring patience, courage, and authenticity. This is not a game of withholding, it is a subtle invitation to meet in the realm of symbols rather than surfaces. Too much too soon collapses the symbol into mere fact, and fact alone cannot feed longing. A story told all at once is quickly forgotten. A story revealed in echoes becomes unforgettable. Consider the lovers of myth and history who understood this cadence. Scheherazade spun her tales night after night, each ending on a breath, each pause a promise of more. Her mystery was not manipulation, it was art, a recognition that the human soul hungers for gradual revelation. In her silence lay power, in her measured speech, devotion. Likewise, the sovereign archetype of the queen does not open the gates of her inner kingdom at a stranger's knock. She welcomes visitors to her court, but the inner sanctum remains veiled until true alliance is proven. Modern relationships crave this forgotten elegance. In a culture of instant messages and relentless disclosure, to speak slowly, to reveal thoughtfully, becomes almost revolutionary. The pause itself becomes magnetic. He leans forward, not to conquer but to understand. His own shadow stirs, sensing that here is someone who will not be possessed, only met. And the deeper his own psyche awakens, the more he must shed the armor of superficiality. Yet this dance is not merely about him. It is, above all, about you. Each time you choose to hold a piece of your story until trust ripens, you are honoring the sacred temple of self. Jung's process of individuation demands such reverence. To individuate is to refuse to be consumed by another's projections, to remain whole even in the heat of love. Boundaries are not walls, they are the architecture of freedom. They protect the inner garden where your truest self blooms. There is a subtle alchemy in this restraint. Your silence becomes a mirror in which he must confront his own depths. Without immediate answers, his imagination awakens, and with it, his own journey inward. This is how real intimacy is born, not through the flood of every confession, but through the shared pilgrimage toward each other's essence. In that pilgrimage, the unknown is not a threat, it is a guide. So when the urge rises to fill every pause with explanation, breathe. Let the moment stretch. The unspoken carries its own electricity, a current that both of you can feel but cannot name. That is the realm where archetypes dance and souls truly meet. It is not absence, it is presence intensified, a silence charged with possibility. There is a point in every unfolding bond when the shadow begins to whisper, testing the strength of the connection. Jung understood the shadow not as darkness to be feared, but as the hidden twin of light, the part of the psyche that demands recognition. When you reveal too much too early, you invite another person to peer into a shadow you have not yet claimed as your own. This is a subtle but dangerous act. The unintegrated shadow, offered hastily, becomes a weight the other cannot carry and a mirror he is not ready to face. The mystery that first ignited desire dissolves into unease, and the dance falters. To move with wisdom is to integrate the shadow before offering it. This does not mean hiding your wounds, it means knowing them so fully that they no longer seek validation in another's gaze. A woman who has faced her own depths can speak of pain without pleading for rescue. She embodies what Jung called the self, an inner wholeness that draws others not through confession but through presence. When she shares, it is a choice, not a compulsion. And choice, in love, is magnetic. Imagine two souls meeting where the river of time slows. He senses her silence as alive, not empty. She speaks of memories like distant constellations, visible yet untouchable. Each word is a spark that lights his own interior sky. He is not merely learning facts, he is encountering an archetype, the eternal feminine that moves like tide and moon. In this sacred tension, his own anima stirs, that inner feminine he carries but rarely meets. Your restraint awakens in him a dialogue with himself, a deepening of his own psychic landscape. It is tempting to believe that closeness is measured by disclosure. Modern culture equates intimacy with full access, as though love were a password to every hidden file. But the psyche thrives on symbol and story, not on data. To reveal everything is to flatten the symbol, to strip the story of its power. The lover archetype lives in the realm of poetry, not spreadsheets. When you offer a slow revelation, you keep love in the language of myth, where it can grow beyond mere transaction. Consider also the alchemy of absence. In the pause between your words, he meets himself. He must sit with questions, and questions are fertile ground. They summon imagination, empathy, and humility. They draw him closer not because you demand it, but because the mystery invites him. He approaches as a pilgrim, not a conqueror, and the relationship becomes a sacred journey rather than a hurried consumption. This pacing nurtures your own soul as well. By choosing when and how to share, you honor the process of individuation, that slow unfolding of the authentic self. You refuse to let the other's expectations define your timing. You recognize that some truths must be spoken only when the heart is steady enough to hold them. Boundaries, in this sense, are not barriers, they are the rhythm of self-respect, the architecture of inner freedom. And here lies the quiet power that men and women alike sense but rarely name. When you hold your mystery with dignity, you become a living symbol of the eternal feminine, both moon and ocean, both hearth and horizon. It is not performance, it is nature. The unconscious responds with awe, because awe is the language of the soul. So let the silence breathe. Let your stories unfold like seasons, each confession timed with the slow inevitability of spring. In that unfolding, desire deepens, respect flourishes, and intimacy becomes something that cannot be rushed or broken. In the slow dance of revelation, the archetypes of lover and sovereign begin to weave their deeper spell. When you honor the rhythm of your own unfolding, you create a sanctuary where love matures instead of burns out. Jung wrote of the Konjunktio, the sacred union of opposites that occurs only when each pole remains distinct. Mystery is the necessary distance that allows union to become transformation. Without that distance, what begins as passion collapses into sameness, and sameness is the enemy of desire. Think of the ocean at twilight, its surface calm yet concealing unmeasured depths. To the untrained eye it is simply water, but the sailor knows the power that lies beneath. In the same way, a woman who reveals herself with patient grace communicates an infinite interior. Each carefully chosen word is a ripple hinting at the vastness below. He approaches not as a collector of facts but as a seeker of meaning, compelled to journey farther into her depths because he senses the endlessness beyond the visible shore. This is not a withholding born of fear. It is a generosity of pacing. True generosity is not the flood but the stream that quenches without overwhelming. To share everything at once is to ask another to drink the ocean. To offer only what the moment can hold is an act of profound respect, for yourself, for him, and for the fragile mystery that lives between you. In that respect, attraction strengthens into something rarer than infatuation, reverence. Notice how the psyche responds to such reverence. When he is invited to discover rather than consume, his own inner world begins to open. The anima within him, the feminine aspect that longs for communion, finds a mirror in your restraint. He meets not a confession but a presence, and presence awakens presence. This is how two souls truly encounter each other, not in the glare of total exposure but in the soft glow of unfolding recognition. Your own growth mirrors this process. To choose when and how to reveal is to claim your autonomy. It is the practice of individuation, the ongoing birth of the authentic self. Each moment of deliberate silence is an affirmation, I am whole, whether seen or unseen. I invite you to know me, but I do not collapse into the need to be known. Such sovereignty radiates like quiet fire, drawing those who are ready and steady enough to approach. Consider the subtle transformation that occurs when mystery is honored. Desire evolves into devotion. Curiosity matures into trust. What began as magnetism of the senses becomes a communion of souls. He is no longer chasing novelty, he is meeting the eternal feminine that lives within you and, by reflection, within himself. This meeting cannot be forced, it must be courted by time and patience, by pauses and carefully chosen words. The deepest intimacy is not in the rush but in the resonance. So when the moment arrives and he leans closer, sensing that you carry stories yet untold, let the pause linger. Let your eyes speak before your lips. In that breath, you both stand at the threshold of something greater than romance, the recognition of two vast interiors, each honoring the mystery of the other. It is here, in this delicate balance of revelation and restraint, that love transcends the ordinary and becomes a path of transformation. The deeper the bond grows, the more vital the discipline of timing becomes. Desire thrives in an atmosphere where revelation and reserve flow like tides, each drawing the other toward greater depth. Jung called this movement the mysterium conjunctionis, the sacred joining that can only occur when both souls remain whole unto themselves. When you speak with mindful cadence, you protect the alchemy of that joining, allowing intimacy to be a slow-fire transformation rather than a spark that burns itself to ash. Imagine the quiet gravity of a moonlit garden. You walk its paths with a lantern, revealing only what the night can bear. Each step invites, never forces, discovery. A relationship that honors mystery moves in the same way. You reveal what is ready, and in the dim spaces between, he senses the grandeur of what remains unseen. The unknown becomes a living presence, breathing between your words, shaping each encounter into something sacred. This is why the art of deliberate silence is not withholding but creation. To keep some truths within until trust has matured is to sculpt the space where devotion can take root. Overexposure is like harsh sunlight, it withers before roots can deepen. But gradual light, morning after morning, coaxes life to blossom. Your restraint becomes the rhythm of growth, a cadence the unconscious instinctively respects. Consider how this slow unveiling changes him as well. Without a rush of disclosures to grasp, he must listen, not only to you but to the stirrings of his own interior world. His projections, those quick illusions of who he thinks you are, cannot survive the patient unfolding. In their place arises true perception. He begins to see you not as an archetype of fantasy but as a sovereign soul, a mystery with infinite layers. Such seeing is rare, and it awakens a reverence deeper than infatuation. Your own shadow, too, finds its rightful place. By choosing the moment of confession, you claim authorship of your story. You refuse to hand another person the unfinished manuscript of your becoming. Individuation, Jung's name for the lifelong work of integrating every part of the psyche, demands this sovereignty. To share from wholeness rather than hunger is to offer a gift, not a plea. And a gift, freely given, carries no weight of expectation. This discipline also protects the sacred core of self-worth. When you speak only what feels aligned, you affirm a truth older than any romance. You are not defined by what you reveal or by who receives it. Your worth is inherent, like the sea's depth, unchanged whether anyone dives beneath its surface. This recognition releases you from the subtle trap of performing intimacy as proof of love. Watch how the atmosphere between you shifts when mystery is honored. Each meeting becomes a ritual, each conversation a threshold. The pauses thrum with quiet electricity. He leans closer, not to conquer, but to witness. You feel no need to rush because you know that the richest bonds are carved by time. What emerges is neither possession nor dependency, but a communion that respects the infinite within you both. And as the nights lengthen and the dialogue deepens, you sense the quiet arrival of freedom, the realization that love is not the unveiling of every hidden chamber, but the dance of two vast and separate skies. It is in that vastness that devotion finds its true shape, not as captivity, but as choice renewed again and again. There comes a moment when the quiet rhythm you have guarded begins to crystallize into something unshakable. Attraction, once sparked by mystery, now matures into a recognition that goes beyond romance. Jung described this stage as the emergence of the self, a center that holds the tension of all opposites. You have walked carefully through shadow and light, offering fragments of your story only when the soil of trust was ready. What remains is not the thrill of secrecy, but the serenity of wholeness. In this space, silence becomes less a strategy and more a natural state. You are no longer deciding what to hide, you are simply dwelling in the fullness of being. The man who stands before you senses it immediately. His anima, the feminine within, has met its reflection in your stillness, and it awakens something wordless in him. He realizes he is not chasing a puzzle to be solved but witnessing a soul that cannot be possessed. Desire transforms into devotion because the mystery is not about withholding, it is about the infinite depth of a person who belongs first to herself. Consider how the archetypes rearrange themselves now. The lover becomes the sage, carrying the wisdom of restraint and the warmth of understanding. The queen remains sovereign, but her power is no longer the allure of the unseen, it is the quiet authority of presence. The shadow stands beside the light, both accepted, both integrated. There is nothing left to perform, nothing left to prove. The dance that began with tension now flows with effortless grace. This is the paradox of true intimacy: the more whole you become, the less you need from another, and the more profound the connection grows. When you are no longer driven by the fear of being misunderstood, every word you choose to share is free of urgency. It carries the fragrance of freedom, not the weight of expectation. He feels this difference as clearly as a shift in the wind. The bond endures because it is no longer about filling a void, it is about honoring two complete worlds that choose, moment by moment, to meet. Your journey has been an inward pilgrimage as much as an outward romance. Each time you listen to the quiet counsel of your own depths, you affirmed a truth larger than any relationship, that self-worth is not a currency to be traded for love, but a birthright that precedes it. By embracing the mystery within, you discovered that the power to reveal or remain silent was never about control, it was about sovereignty, about living as the author of your own becoming. And so, as you stand at the horizon of this union, you understand that the essence of love is not conquest, not confession, but choice. You can speak or remain silent. You can walk beside him or walk alone. Either way, your worth is untouched, your being complete. The sacred tension that once drew him near now becomes a shared serenity, a recognition that the journey was never toward each other alone, but toward the center of the self. The final truth is simple and unstoppable, like dawn breaking over still water: the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.